Everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to Lucid's 2022 Tournament Game 4, where we are playing Nazca. This is turn 16. Last turn we had a disastrous battle against Ashdod, which basically spelled the end of the game for us, more than likely. So this turn is Fallout, right? So yeah, let's jump into things. The first thing, before we actually jump into actual pieces, the first thing that we can see is yeah, the whole can opened. So, I talked about this on the last video a little bit, right? Like that, I didn't know the extent to which Ashdod was coordinating with other people, right? I didn't know if things were already in design, right? That Ashdod was maybe already working with Agartha and or Van or whatever, and whether or not they had just planned to be the tip of the spear, or if they were going to show that battle report and be like, hey, come on in, Nazca's free food. Because, right, like, if in my opinion, the situation, if they had not been coordinating already, right, and I took a battle against a Nazca like that, I wouldn't tell anyone shit. I wouldn't tell them a damned thing, because I would be like, okay, I absolutely can now obliterate this Nazca. That is the vast majority of the power that they would have. And I wouldn't show anyone anything or tell anyone anything for hopes that I would get more of these spoils overall. So what this feels like is either Ashdod was already in cahoots with Agartha and Van, or Ashdod did show that battle report, right? Which, to each their own. But regardless, we have now been attacked by Agartha and Van in multiple locations. So yeah, let's see how everything goes. First up on the list, Enchantment 2 completed. Good. That we're gonna need Enchantment 3 to have any hope of making some sort of last stand or punitive damages or a black eye, So this is good. We need more. Much more. So up next, we can see that Van has actually claimed the Throne of Air, and that's really interesting. It's also a little unfortunate. Vanheim has, I should say Vanheim specifically, because Vanarus is in here as well, right? But actually, is this Vanheim or is this Vanarus? This is Vanheim. Thrones of Ascension. Yeah, this is Vanheim. So one of the potential weaknesses of Vanhears is using ranged units to pop their glamour, right? The Throne of Air makes that significantly less likely, because the Throne of Air gives air shield, right? So I think it's only like air shield 40. I don't think it's the real 80 air shield. I could be wrong on that. Let's check. 5 wiki Throne of Air. Thrones of Ascension, Air. Yeah, it's air shield 40. So it's not the full air shield. So, ranged attacks can still work. I mean, ranged attacks can still work on 80 air shield if you have enough of them. But it is a very nice bonus to a weakness, right? That Van would have potentially had. But yeah, so interesting. And I'm not sure where this throne is. I'm not sure if it's this one. It's definitely not this one, right? Because we can see Sistala, but he's got 3 other thrones he has access to, so it could be this one in CERN, or it could be either of these two. So there's that. Um, so, thrones. Whoops, sorry. Van, throne of air. Boom, right there. And then we get into the the meat and potatoes of this turn. Seeing how bad the damage is, and seeing what all we're going to be able to do after the fact, right? So, Agartha attacks us in Satrandith, which is right below our capital. And they've got a pretty simple force here. Nothing super special. A bunch of heavy infantry, some crossbowmen, a bunch of light infantry, and a prophet leader here. The way he has them organized is somewhat conducive to protecting the prophet leader, but not especially. He has them on hold, right? We would be dropping, because they're also on hold. So now they're moving. Now we would be up in the air, and now we would be down on the ground. And so not a very good protective circle for the prophet. And I think there's only just the prophet leading this group. So this is a little sketch on getting popped. And then the other thing is there's nothing just super scary here. Protection 18 is high for the heavy infantry, but it's not the highest thing in existence. And these guys don't have any resistances to like thunder weapons or things like that, so we could definitely pop them. The light infantry are very killable. The crossbowmen will just wither anyone that we hit, go against or have go against them, but it is what it is. But overall, that is a sizable force that can threaten our capital, but isn't an existential threat necessarily. Then we have a battle in Mark where Agartha sends in the Magma kids. Hell yeah. So Magma children are super interesting. High-ish HP for their size. They have a Flame Strike, which is armor piercing. And fire damage. They have a heat aura. They have a fire shield. They're pretty damn good, and they are a key to Agartha's early power, because you can raid around with shit like this, right? So this guy's gonna summon Earth Power. He blesses himself, casts Strength of Giants. Okay, so normally you're trying to cast Strength of Giants on these guys, right? Because I do believe the Flame Strike is actually boosted by Strength, right? Actually, I say boosted by Strength. It is a damage 0 weapon, so it directly correlates to their Strength. So a little bit of a misplay here, right? So Strength of Giants is Earth 3. Typically what you want to do is you want to have these guys not close to the Magma, the Golem Crafter, right? Because if they're too close to the Golem Crafter, I think this is the first time we've seen their bless. Natural Protection 5, Blood Bond, Reconstruction. Interesting. Interesting? Blood Bond. I guess these are for Reconstruction, Natural Protection. These are for their Sentinels, the construction sacreds that they can get. So this is just to make them very, very, very tanky, which is an interesting thing. So what you would normally want to do with this Golem Crafter is have it closer to the Magma Children, but not too close, because if it's too close, it'll get burnt up by their heat auras. So typically it's something like have the Magma Children, right here, because the range on Strength of Giants is okay. It's not great, but it's okay. So if you have them right here, right, they're out of the range of the Golem Crafter. And you don't want to wait. This blessing in between the Strength of Giants and the Earth Power is too long, right? You either want to give this guy Earth Gems, which is probably not a good idea this early in the game, or to immediately do Strength of Giants, or you want to do Summon Earth Power, then Strength of Giants. Potentially Strength of Giants twice, depending on how close they are, or if you have like a ring of fire protection or something, right? Because that can keep the golem crafters safe, and it's pretty cheap to make. Then you get multiple casts of the Strength of Giants off on the Magma kids to make sure. If you, this party is actually kind of like a big party for a raid like this, which is not a criticism or anything like that. It might not be a raid. It might just be an actual secondary force, and he wants it to be strong enough to take many provinces or receive an attack. But anyways, the Strength of Giants not hitting means these Magma kids don't hit as hard. And this whole situation is a very interesting scenario because this is not good against me necessarily, right? One, these are all being led by a single, very squishy leader, right? And that leader is not really benefiting from much of this bless. Sure, he gets the natural protection, but that just takes his protection up to 8. Okay, great, right? That'll get super popped very easily. So, that is somewhat dangerous, right, for him, because we can just kill that with a attack rear command. And then all of these guys without magical leadership will rout. But the other thing is that Magma Children, especially if they're not getting a buff, the Strength of Giants buff, right, aren't that great against our bless, because we have the Fire 10 resistance bless, right? Now, don't get me wrong, that's still going to hit us, right? But they still have to hit us with the attack, and then, it's a DNR, right, on how much damage it's going to do. DNR, DRN? My god, I'm never going to remember. But DRN. Yeah, it's a DRN. A DNR is a very different thing. So it's a DRN. So that does mean, like, they can still hurt us with the Flame Strike, but they have a much less chance of hurting us significantly because of the -10. The other side effect is most things will get fucked up by their Heat Aura, we will not, and then most things will get fucked up by their Fire Shield, and we generally will get fucked up significantly less because of the fire resistance again. So, Magma Children, very interesting scenario. And this whole raid, very interesting scenario. Kind of like the whole Agarthan attack on us is kind of interesting and kind of disrespecting the flyers concept. Like, so for Satrandith, for example, these guys, because I saw his force coming. We could have tried to defend in Satrandith, but I didn't. It was a gamble, right? So I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to take that gamble. But, like, for example, you could take 5 of these heavy infantry and put them on guard commander, right? And then you also basically want these guys where they were, right? But on hold and attack closest, so that as the hold and attack closest command ends, they move around the prophet, and then as the volley drops, the prophet is encased, basically, right? So where they were positioned was correct, but the fact that they didn't have a hold and attack was incorrect. Although it could have just been a misclick, so, it is what it is. Because all the rest of it was on hold and attack, so. Anyways, so interesting stuff there with Agartha. Pretty cool. Then we have some battles with Van, because of course we do. So Van is the one, Van's the one that I've actually been talking to the most. Van is the one that seemingly is chatty, right? Ashdod is somewhat talkative. Agartha is not super talkative. And that's fine, right? You don't have to be talkative in a game like this. It's okay. But Van's seemingly somewhat chatty, and Van, I don't know how much to believe them, but Van assured me previously that they were not preparing to elf me. And where they targeted could mean that was true. However, three separate attacks in those areas does mean to me that they were at least preparing for the possibility, because they pulled the trigger real quick. And I don't like. I think I remember them saying that Ashdod shared the battle report with them, and that is why they attacked me, because they were like, you're dead anyways. So like, I hadn't planned on attacking you, but after that crushing defeat, I've got to take what land I can, because I don't want Ashdod and Agartha to just get everything, right? So that's the story. I don't know how much I believe that story. It is a plausible story, but it is a very diplomatic story, right? Like it's absolutely what I would tell someone in Dominions, or what I would expect to be told me in Dominions, right? By a good diplomatic player, because you want to assuage their feelings. You're going to be like, hey, look, I don't want to do this, but so-and-so showed me that report, and now I've gotta, because you're dead. So it's fun, it's interesting, but I'm also like slightly suspicious. Anyways, let's see how these battles went. Our province defense we didn't set up any traps or anything like that, and our province defense isn't really capable of defending against something like Vans, so I'm not expecting anything. We have an attack in Bara, and we have seen the Vanheim scenario before. This guy has a main gauche of parrying. That's pretty cool. So he is very defensive. Says lost lots of money, never had it. I like that. Now this is, I said that about the PD, but this is actually our Hatenruna province, right? So this is where all of our Malkis were, capturing Hatenruna, and we were just doing it. We were continuing to be like, hey, maybe if we don't get hit, we'll be able to get more Hatenruna that we can raid with, or we can use to hold up our walls, and then we got hit. So these guys are going to get destroyed by these Vans. 24 defense, let's look at this. Magic weapons, air shield 40, shock 5, poison 15, fire 10, cold 5, defense 3, strength 2, blood surge, dark vision, combat speed 30. These guys are going to make a mockery of what we have in the field here. What we're basically hoping is that a fair amount of our Hatenruna, or maybe just our Malquis, actually just rout, right? Have we actually even popped a glamour? Does not look like it. Yeah, they're just butchering everything. Because, I mean, what's the chance of these guys actually, not an afflicted one, 8 attack value versus 25? That's guy, not that guy. Nope. Yeah, oh, right, because they're blood search now. So 25 on the blood search. There is, the statistical probability of that happening is just cataclysmically low, right? It's just absurdly low. Cold 5 is interesting. We got to keep that in mind, because that could be shock 5, cold 5. We can do something with that potentially. So we got these Malquis. Oh, okay, our Malquis did rout at the end. Looks like some of them might get got. Maybe not. Some of them are definitely going to get away. 2 of them down. Okay, so we lost 2 of the Malquis there. And 4 got away. Retreat details. Successful. Successful. So all of our commanders that retreated did retreat successfully. Most of them retreated to Forest of Pine, which is annoying. Only 1 retreated to Nazca, but that's fine. We weren't really expecting much out of that, and if at this point, if they die, they die. It's kind of whatever. So Van Strike Force in Bara, Van Strike Force in Old Man Mountains. And this is the one that kind of makes me suspicious, right? Because this one is over a mountain province, I suppose. Well, no, I guess technically he has direct route through. We'll take a look here in a second. But this is the same type of scenario, just a squad led by a van. Very typical Vanheim raiding party. No big deal. Easy peasy. Easy win. We'll go ahead and take a look at Cloud Breakers as well. Yeah, he has a connection. Never mind. He has a connection. Same type of situation. Where is his leader? No gear on his leader. That's fine. This one actually has some raptors, but they're not going to be able to do anything. They have... Oh, well, they're morale broke, so maybe that's not a good example. Base 11. Base 11 is not going to hit. It's just not gonna. So, 3 easy wins for Van, and then we attacked Ashdod in Pack Woods, and this wasn't a real attack. This was just a... Maybe we'll get lucky and he won't put any PD in that province, and we'll get to, like, just delay him for a single turn, or route some things, right? But... that was just a fool's hope. Not only did he put PD in the province, he actually sent in another leader with some more Sheshai Anakites, so all good. These are the ones that were did not have a leader, right? And I had my werewolf scripted for hold, retreat, which was good because that was the perfect timing to get the fuck out of there. So we did not lose our werewolf. They successfully retreated to Golem. So, bunch of losses, but kind of expected, right? Battles for this turn versus Ashdod, 0 wins, 1 loss, versus Agartha, 0 wins, 2 losses, and versus Vanheim, 0 wins and 3 losses. Pretty interesting. And that actually does give us a fairly large amount of information to play with, but still a couple questions to answer. So, we're going to have to figure out what's going on with that. Unexpected events in... Do I have... I did not do a good job. I have bad notes on this turn. Sorry. Unexpected events for the turn. A peddler was peddling his wares in the province when one of our agents discovered a few magic gems of various types among his glass pearls and buttons. They were swiftly and forcefully bought at the price Odysseus, the evening star, intended. Oh, de boyo. Okay, so events this turn. This is the only event. So events this turn, -1 gold for Fire 2, Air 1, Water 1, Astral 1, Death 1, and Nature 1. A fair price, as they say. Oh, goodness gracious. So this is nice, but relatively inconsequential. We're getting some more air gems. We'll talk about gems here in a little bit. And then a worldwide event. Evocation rituals are cheaper this month. I'm not really going to catalog worldwide events. These are not really in control, and they very rarely matter in the long run, but you know, sometimes they work out. Okay, let's talk about things. Let's talk about so movement is very simple. Everything's just going back to Nazca, right? We don't currently have any... We could potentially fight against some of the things that we're facing, right? Like we talked about the Agarthan situation. The Van scenario is pretty unlikely with what we currently have researched and what we have left to attack with. But Van has also told me that they don't really... They're not interested in my capital, is what Van has said. Again, don't know if I believe them or if I should believe them. But Van has basically said they're just snagging territory from me to try to make what Ashdod and Agartha get lessened, right? So they've taken these 3 provinces, and I think they intend to try to take Mighty Pillars. Whatever, more power to them. We are sending everyone back to Nazca, because all we can really do now is try to blacken someone's eye, right? Like, whoever comes to sit on the capital is the one that's gonna have this situation where it's like, okay, we'll try to figure out what we can do against them, right? So let's talk about that conceptually. We'll talk with Van first, because Van is, if we trust them, the least likely. If Van consolidates, right, and comes at me, they're going to wipe out my cap defense without a blink. And if I patrol with literally everything, they will still kill the ever-loving shit out of me. With the enchantment level that we have, with the evocation level that we have, with the alteration level that we have, it doesn't matter, right? We could potentially get a bunch of, like, lesser elementals out that might be somewhat helpful, but against a force, just the force that we see, not the force that could be further behind, right? Just against, 8, 16, 24 Vans, I think we lose literally everything that we have. We are not going to hit them, and they are going to destroy us, right? That's if we patrol. The upside is that Van has very low siege strength, especially at this point in the game, right? So they can demolish our province defense, but it will take them 5, 6, 7, 8 turns. It'll take them a long time to get through the amount of siege defense that we have. Because keep in mind, all of these Haten Runa have 1 siege defense, which is typically the equivalent of what a cav has, right, is 1. So we've got a lot of units here that have quite a bit of siege defense, not the Condors, ignore them, but, you know, that have quite a bit of siege defense, and that is not going to be easy for someone like Van to crack, okay? So if Van does end up being the one that sits on our capital, it's going to take them many turns to crack our fort, and that will give us time to research things. And we'll talk more specifically about what we're actually going to research later, but that's just the general idea, right? If Van comes and sits on our cap, cool, interesting. That means that we'll have a lot of time to try to research some sort of counter. And really what that means is some sort of counter means something to try to kill as many Vans as possible to make it painful when they do ultimately kill me, right? The other alternatives, Ashdod and Agartha. We did slow down Ashdod because of the fight in Packwoods. So, Ashdod is a little bit on the back foot here. I do not know if Ashdod if there are negotiations going on or what have you, but Ashdod is actually the furthest from our capital. That being said, Ashdod is also probably the most threatening for our capital, both with the combination of the bless that they have, right, that RCK has taken, and the fact that even though giants, right, he's not going to have many of them, giants still have a lot of siege strength. So he might not have a whole bunch of Sheshai Anakites, but they have 4.4 siege strength. So if he's got, you know, a chunk of 20 to 30 of them, that's 100 siege strength on its own, right? If he brings in a chunk of Gileadites or some undead Rephites or things like that, he can pop my fort pretty quickly in probably like 2 to 4 turns, something like that, right? And our ability to kill him is very, very low, right? What we would need is either very high enchantment for like fatigue plays, like Rigor Mortis or something like that, or we would need pretty high evocation, probably things like Shadow Blast, right, is the route that we would need to go, or Thunder Strike potentially could fit the bill as well, right? That's unlikely for us to accomplish. So Ashdod is the furthest away from the cap, and I hope that means if there are negotiations happening, that Ashdod is the one that is not going to get the cap, which kind of sucks for them, because they definitely did the work, right? They did the big fight. But, yeah, here's hoping, basically, right? And that just leaves Agartha. Agartha, I think, is actually the most defensible option for us. Not a victory, mind you, but the most defensible option. Because Agartha, at this point in the game, really doesn't have anything super special aside from Magma Children. And Magma Children can be a double-edged sword, right? Like, they do have that heat aura that can cause, damage to your own units, etc., etc. If they get into a big siege battle with me, they've got to funnel all of those units in. That means it's a particular players are going to be less likely to use those Magma Children, right? Or at least less likely to use them in the siege, or more likely to only use Magma Children in the siege, etc., etc. There are a bunch of different options, but those options take time, right? And it leads to us, again, to be able to try to research counters. Now, Agartha will probably siege faster than Van does, especially considering they've clearly got forces here and reinforcements on the way. But they are again, not something that I think I can beat, but something that I think I can bloody probably the most, right? Like, if in order of what I think I could bloody, it's Agartha way out in front. I could bloody their nose. And then it's kind of Ashdod and Van are kind of like tied at the back of like, I need stuff to be able to bloody their noses, and I don't know that I'm going to have time to get stuff. So, let's talk about recruitment, the immediacy of recruitment, because we probably got one more turn, maybe, of recruitment. I don't know if Agartha... they should be hitting my capital almost immediately, whoever is going to hit my capital. But there might be discussions, there might be negotiations and debate going on. So we might have one more turn after this of an open capital, but I don't know, so we're going to have to see. Recruitment this turn, 1 Huron Priest, 4 Sun Guards, and 1 Alcac Spearman. Let's talk about why. The why is pretty simple. We don't have time to do anything that has slow to recruit. We don't have the money to do something like a Royal Malqui. Huron Priest, next best, or a Malqui Priest, for that matter. So Huron Priest, next best thing. Also Huron Priest, we're going to have Strength of Giants this turn, right? And Strength of Giants is one of those potential key pieces that could make things better for us. Huron Priests, if we get a Earth random, which we have a 33% chance, right? That's an Earth 2. Earth 2 goes Earth Power or uses an Earth Gem and goes Strength of Giants. So that is one of the best options that we could have at this current point in time. So we're going to try to run that gamble. The Sun Guards, we need things that hit hard. If we get Sun Guards with Strength of Giants on them, then we're looking at 26 damage Sun Maces. 26 damage Sun Maces could potentially kill things like Giants, and will definitely kill things like Agarthan Infantry. They could kill Vans if they could hit Vans, but at that point it's a 14 attack roll versus a 23 to 25 attack roll, so still relatively unlikely, but by God, when they do hit them, they very well might mollywop them. So Sun Guard's just the best kind of opportunity that we have. We don't need mass right now, we need quality, so we're trying to get quality. And then the Axeman is just to fill things out. So that is recruitment. It's relatively straightforward. We also have special recruits, 2 Supayas, boom. And technically, I believe we had recruited, I say recruited, we had captured Hatan Runa. I don't know when the capture I don't know if the capture mechanics happen in the magic phase. Actually, I think capture mechanics happen at the end, towards the end of the phase. So we didn't have a chance, I think, to capture any Hatan Runa, so there's none of that this turn. Trying to think. So what is our plan right now? Our plan is basically to wait and see who comes at us, right? We are going to be finishing out Enchantment 3, because Enchantment 3 gets us Strength of Giants. Then the decision is do we want to run up more enchantment, right? Going to Enchantment 5 gets us Horde of Skeletons, right? But Enchantment 5 is going to take us a long time to get to. That's, what is that? That's 1,200, because it's 400 to get to 4 and 800 to get to 5. And at 146 research speed, that is unlikely to get us there versus the people that it might be useful against, right? It's possible, but it seems somewhat unlikely. So that is not necessarily a good plan. The other ideas, though, being going up evocation, right? Trying to get to things like Thunderstrike, trying to get to things like Shadow Blast. Shadow Blast being a very a very good option, but again, another level 5. What I've decided to do now, at least initially, is to go for Alteration. So what we're going specifically for in Alteration are 3 things. We're going for Iron Skin, Moss Body, and Temper Flesh. This is a very typical, well, and Body Ethereal, but Body Ethereal is only specifically for Agartha, not for Van or Ashdod. The Iron Skin, Temper Flesh, Moss Body combo is a very typical combo, very, very well known, right? And the whole concept there is that it makes someone extremely hard to kill, basically. Now, in the right situations, that can be very, very useful, because you can just rout large armies. But against the wrong scenarios, it's not very useful at all. So the wrong scenarios being things that can pierce armor or negate armor, like Magma Children, right? Things that just hit really fucking hard, like Giants, right? Or things that are very quality troops, and there's going to be so many of them, that they're going to eventually pop your Moss Body and then get through, right? And those are kind of like the Vanheim scenarios. So this is a route to potentially make things interesting. It also gets us ideas like Swarm or, Luck or what have you. There are things that we could get out of Alteration. Really, why we're going for Alteration 4, though, is because it gives us one combo, one trick, right, that is relatively reliable in the right situations, but it's also achievable, right? We can finish Enchantment 3, and we can probably finish Alteration 3, right? Because that's only going to take us like a turn or 2 more. And then Alt 4 is maybe doable because it's like 3 turns after that. So you see our turn counter is starting to get higher and higher. So there's almost no chance of us making it to a level 5, but making it to a level 4 in Alteration or Evocation. That's also the other reason why I basically have decided not to go for Conjuration 5 being the other potential option, because Conjuration 5 could get us air elementals and earth elementals, and even water elementals with our god, right? So those would be pretty awesome. How could be useful, etc., etc. But I don't think we're going to have that many turns to get to Conjuration 5. I could be wrong, but we'll see, right? So that is that. Other people might have noticed that our gems have diminished pretty significantly this turn. And that's because I've traded away a shit ton of gems this turn. So trade. Ulm, Death 10, and Nature 12. Arcocephale, Earth 7, Water 3, and Nature 5. So we've tossed a lot of gems at people for gear. Gear and research items. Gear and owl kills, basically. Now, I'm going to talk about the actual gear and stuff like that later on once we actually get it and we're actually looking at it. But the owl quills are pretty simple, right? We have just spent a lot of time talking about how much research can we get done in the next 4 to 8 turns, depending on who is coming at our capital, how long is it going to take them to, breach our walls, etc., etc. So, if we can get even just, I'm trying to gamble for like 5-ish, right? But 5 owl quills is 30 research, right? So an extra 30 research a turn could get us to a lot of places, right? That does make the idea of Conjuration 5 possible, or Evocation 5 possible, right? Bringing in the abilities that come with them, right? So, and again, all of this is to go back to this concept of, not to win, not to survive, but to just bloody whoever's nose we can as much as we possibly can. So, in that kind of vein, what I've tried to do is make very one-sided deals and very one-sided offerings. So for Arco, for example, right, I'm sending them a bunch of gems, and I've basically been like, look, if you can get me owl quills, I will send them back to you before I die, right? So you're gonna get gems now, and you're gonna get those owl quills back in 4 or 5 turns, because as soon as my I say you have to be careful, right? As soon as my walls are close to being popped, I will send them back to you, right? And yeah, we'll just see how that goes. So there's that. And then the Olmish side of things is just Olm's the gear producer, right? So I'm trying to get simple gear from them in order to try to be like, hey, I've got to make a last stand. It's in your best interest, right? Like, Ulm borders Agartha, they border Van, they don't border, Ashdod, but they still don't want, like, a strong Ashdod. So, it's in your best interest to have me bloody them for you, and also I will pay exorbitant amounts of gems for basic gear. So Ulm has been very, very responsive in that, and actually talked to me a fair bit. So Ulm probably would have been a pretty fun ally if I wasn't just gonna die. So there's that. I'm trying to see, is there anything else? Oh yeah, there is one last little thing, right? And the last little thing is Yis is in a war with Oceania and Pelagia. I think, again, I've talked about this previously. I think there's a 1v1v1 going on. Not 100% sure, but I do think that is what's happening. And I have basically, because Yis, I have an app with, right? Yis was the only, not the only person, but the only neighbor that was immediately like, yeah, I don't care. You're fine, man. I got my own shit to worry about. So I've contacted Yis and basically given them intel on what's happening, talked to them about the Agarthan army, because I think that's the one that matters the most, and basically ended our app and said, hey, feel free to grab the coast, take as much as you want, because anything that you take is stuff that my enemies are not taking. So great, fantastic. And this is what I like to do as a player in these types of games. So future reference, all you gotta do to get shit out of me is just be nice, right? Because if you're nice to me, I'm like, yeah, you can have all the stuff, take it. Oh shit. Okay, so anyways, there's that. I think that's pretty much it, right? Like, research, we want to hit some key things, but the big deal is we need to know who's going to be on our cap, right? We need to know who's coming at us so that we can try to research specific things for them, because it's gonna be different things potentially for each of them. Like, elementals would probably be great against Agartha, generally speaking, but against Ashdod, not so much, potentially, right? The right evocations would be pretty good against Ashdod. Having hordes of skeletons could be good against the right people. Probably not against Ashdod. Ashdod really fucks things up for me, yeah. If I could research for 18 turns, right? Like, I could get to enchantment 6 and I could do rigor mortis, and then I could, like, rigor mortis horde of skeletons Ashdod down. There's also things like, I will say this, there's things like foul vapors at enchantment 5, which could be an interesting play against Agartha or Ashdod. I don't think Ashdod has poison resistance on his bless. Let me check. Go to my notes in my Dominions folder and to the opponent's document. Ashdod. Yeah, no. Attack 2, shock 10, cold 10, or strength, blood bond, regeneration. So regeneration will typically counter, right? Something like foul vapors, but if they rout, right? Then when they rout, all those poison stacks from foul vapors will continue to tick, and the regeneration will not. Right, so that's why you can actually kill very high regenerating, high HP units on the route with something like foul vapors, right? So that's really interesting to keep in mind, right? If we go that route, that is a potential option against Ashdod. Is the idea of, can we route them? Maybe we make like some fear items or something like that, right? Or buy some fear items, more likely. We got a lot of death gems. And can we get foul vapors up? Because we're protected. I mean, with our bless, not everything is protected, but our blessed units, which is most of our mages and, sacreds. So again, we're not looking to win. We're just looking to be punitive. So that could be something that could work. Probably not going to work against Van because Van has poison 15. So yeah, we need to know who's going to be on our cap. Who are we going to be facing down? And then we'll try to come up with some counter or punitive damage scenario and go from there. So yeah, that is a long-winded turn for so little happening. I apologize, but I think it's fun to just kind of like theorize and talk about shit and be like, oh no. I know a lot of people, right? Like, this is turn 16. I know I'm not, this is not shade to anyone, right? To each their own, by all means, right? But I know a lot of people would look at a game like this and be like, what's the point of putting this up? You got your ass kicked, right? Like, the game is so short, get out of here, right? Well, one, that doesn't really equate to the way that I do turns, right? Like, I do turns, or I do videos for each turn, and two, I think the times where you suck are almost just as important or just as interesting as the times where you kick ass, right? Anyways, I'm blathering at this point. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Hopefully next turn we'll know who's coming at us. Bye-bye, everybody. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.